Next on UConn Sports Nation, the 2019 recruiting class is finalized. 7 players signed their letter of intents a week ago. Head coach Randy Edsall will break down each player. Quarterback transfer Mike Beaudry will join us. He comes to UConn from Division II West Florida. Why did he choose UConn? And what's his mindset going to be this summer as he enters a quarterback competition? You'll find out coming up. The 2019 football schedule's out. Which games should you circle on your calendars? And finally, Alex Putterman of the Hartford Current will join us to break down the recruiting class and look ahead to spring practice, which began today in stores. This Tuesday edition of UConn Sports Nation begins right now. Welcome to UConn Sports Nation. I am your host, Matt Bisky, and I'm going to be giving you an inside look to the UConn football program beginning with spring practice this week, all right through the 2019 college football season. And we're starting looking back at the recruiting class that this UConn football program and the staff were able to finalize last week, with National Signing Day occurring on February 6th. Of course, the staff in the program held the event at Register Field this past Wednesday, a sold-out event. I want to say 600 people were in attendance. I think that's the number that was communicated from the athletic department. And 7 new members of the class, 20 in total, 10 offensive players, 10 defensive players. We'll talk to the Hartford Current's Alex Putterman to really look at that class. But right off the top, I want to focus on the 7 guys that signed their national letters of intent on the traditional signing day, the first Wednesday in February, as 4 receivers, a quarterback, and 2 defensive linemen finalized their commitment, solidified their commitment by signing their letters of intent. Head coach Randy Edsall held his press conference on Thursday of last week. He talked in detail about the recruiting process, a little background information about some of these players, and really highlighted what they do well on the field. And I want to really showcase that because it gives you an inside look. You'll see what some of these guys can do on the field. If you haven't seen highlight tape yet, if you didn't get a chance to hear this coaching staff talk about some of these guys at Register Field, it's a good opportunity to see these guys in action at the high school level, hear what head coach Randy Edsall thinks about some of these guys, because he was able to check the box in 3 main things he was looking to accomplish in this recruiting class. First was speed, second was athleticism, third was length. Those 3 tangible traits. And then when you get to the intangible traits, love in football, maturity, leadership, come from winning programs. Those are some things that head coach Randy Edsall and his guys were looking on the recruiting trail. And he's very confident. He compared this class to some of the classes he was able to bring in the mid-2000s.
This class reminds me of the kind of classes that we've had here before. Long, athletic, with speed, from good programs, guys that know how to work, want to be good. So I'm excited about that.
7 total signees last week, 1 quarterback, 4 receivers, and 2 defensive linemen. Here's head coach Randy Edsall talking about each player.
Beaudry, the quarterback from University of West Florida, 6'5", 250, probably 260 almost when he was up here. But he's a guy that gives you experience, who's played, seen all the things that you really need to see in terms of at a quarterback. Played a national championship game in Division II. So originally from Saskatchewan, Canada, and really happy to have him. Another guy that we got, Edsall Brown, a wide receiver from Seton Hill University. He's from Rochester, New York originally. He brings us a lot of speed. That's one thing that we didn't have, that we needed to be able to get some people that could stretch the field for us. And Edsall will do that. You know, the one thing is I've had experience with guys from Seton Hill. When I was at Maryland, we took a guy, Yannick Cujo Virgil, and came to us there, and he ended up being a pro player for us. So I do have a history there. And then all the people that we know in Rochester had nothing but great things to say about Ardell. But when you see, 81 receptions, 1,200 yards, nine touchdowns last year, pretty good, and a guy that can run. Cam Ross from St. John's down in D.C., again, via Newark, Delaware. The interesting thing about him, I coached both his brothers at Maryland, Jarrett Ross and Brandon Ross. And so we had a history with the family. And, it was interesting when we recruited Brandon and Jarrett to Maryland. Remember his mom saying, right there is the best one of the bunch, and pointed to Cam when he was a lot younger than at that time. So he's a receiver that's very fast, very quick. And again, he comes from a really good program. I think they were ranked as high as like number 4 or something like that in the country, there at St. John's. But really good kid, and like I said, know the family. Jeff Woods, young man from down in Fayetteville, North Carolina, who was already enrolled. Again, a 2-sport athlete there that was at Trinity Christian. He had committed to East Carolina and then changed to come here. He's from up in New Hampshire, and from the Nashua area where Kendall Reyes was from, and went to the same school, I believe, or same area. Knew Kendall and what all Kendall did here and everything else. So he's already enrolled, right now. And again, big kid that's just going to continue to grow and get bigger. So I think he's got like size 18 shoe, so he's got a big frame. Then we had Delmont Jordan, was a guy, 6'3", 250-pound defensive lineman from Garrett Academy. I think they had about 20 guys on their team this year. Dual sport athlete, good kid, very athletic. Is only just going to continue to get better. Kevin's Clarius, young man from Canada. That was the other thing. We went up into Canada and got kids out of Canada, which has always been good for us. Again, having some connections up there really helps. Guys that have played here for us, Sean Main, O'Neal Wilson, some of those guys, Martin Bedard, really helps us because people know about UConn up there. And also a guy that I had coached when I was at Syracuse, Usman Bari, is up in that area doing things with the youth. And so again, it's one of those things that we always feel good. But Kevin's was a kid, came here to our camp. He was a guy that we had touted and looked at before, and then he had some things he just had to clean up. And then, we were able to bring him down last weekend and sign him. But Matt was a guy, he comes from Raines High School down in Jacksonville, 2-time state champ. They won the state championship this past year and the year before. But he and Cam Ross, they had big things at their high school on for signing date. And so they told us, they asked, and their coaches asked if we could had them announcing the signings back in December. So we were sitting on those 2 signed national letter of intent since December with there. And, Raines, I had a chance to watch them practice during the season. And then that's a great program. Some great players have come out of that program. Coach does a great job down there. You talk about intensity and structure and discipline, all those things. It's a really, really good situation there.
So with recruiting finalized, where does UConn stack up in conference? So you can see here, obviously, the recruiting rankings in 2019 within the AAC. UConn finished 12th. The conference was led by UCF, surprise, surprise. Memphis, SMU, and East Carolina rounded up the top 4. USF, Cincinnati, Houston, and Tulane were the mid-tier. And then finally Temple, Tulsa, Navy, and UConn were the finals ranked teams, all according based on how 247 Sports graded the recruiting classes. Now, one caveat here. You're going to hear Edsall in a second on what he thinks about recruiting rankings. I wanted to post this just to give you a sense of where UConn stacked up against the rest of the conference. UCF had a very respectable class, far and away the top class in the conference. I don't care about recruiting rankings. That's something I really don't care. Because if you look back at head coach Randy Edsall's track record, that's something he didn't care about the first time he was here either. And a lot of those guys were developed over time, multiple years in the program, then they saw action on the field, they continued to develop, and guess where they went to? The National Football League.
I think the one thing is, and this is the thing that I thought we've always done here, is we've evaluated very well. You know, and like I said, you guys know me. I mean, I could care less about stars and everything else. I worry about what guys can fit into what we want to do, and for us to be able to develop kids and have the roles that they want. And I think you saw that in the Super Bowl, you know, with the Patriots. I mean, they might not have had the most talent, but they understood who they were and what they wanted to do, and those guys went out and executed, even though they probably weren't as talented as the Rams. And so that's the thing. And you know, to go with that, the one thing is, it's, you know, these guys, and because these kind of guys we get, and then when you have Matt King come in and be your strength coach, and his assistant Marcus Wazalewski, those guys have done a tremendous job already. Because again, you know, we're a program that's got to develop kids. You know, we're not going to bring in the kids that are, you know, finished products when they come in, but we got to develop them. And having those guys here, just after seeing some of the workouts we've had and looking at our kids, you can see a difference in them already. And that's important, because those guys spend probably more time with them than we do. So I just, you know, like I said, when you look at this, you see length, you see speed, you see athleticism.
Switching gears from head coach Randy Edsall, we're going to be talking with transfer quarterback Mike Beaudry in a second. He's a Division II player at the University of West Florida. He was the first ever recruit to that program. You're going to hear him talk about some of what went into building that program from the ground up. You're going to hear him talk about why he wants to come to UConn, why he's leaving a place where he's going to be the guy, he would be the guy in 2019, why he's leaving West Florida, coming to UConn to challenge himself as a college football player, as a football player in general, to see if he's actually able to play at this level. Because he's leaving a situation where he was going to be the starter. As long as he was healthy, he was going to be the starter. He's coming into a situation this summer where he's got to compete for a job. You'll hear how he's going to approach that. What mentality he's going to be bringing in. Continuing with the UConn Signing Day recap special, I'm joined by quarterback commit Mike Beaudry, who's on the UConn Sports Nation hotline, a Division II transfer from the University of West Florida. Mike, first off, congratulations on the commitment. Welcome to UConn, and how does it feel to be a Husky a day after signing day?
Thank you. It's awesome, and I mean, it really is. You know, getting up to campus and being around all the coaches and the players and just the community was awesome. It really left no doubt in my mind that that's where I wanted to be.
Now, talk a little about the process to get here. After the 2018 season ended, you, of course, obviously decided to enter the transfer portal, which is how UConn became aware of you. Who originally reached out from the coaching staff up here, and what made you interested right off the bat about the UConn program?
So just, you know, entering the portal and stuff, and I think it was Coach Dunn who reached out, and we got in contact. You know, and just started talking a little bit. You know, got on the phone and just kind of shot some messages back and forth, and just kind of got to get to know each other a little bit. And you know, he seemed like a really good guy. You know, did a little bit of research on him, knowledgeable person, lots of experience. And then, I mean, between him and the whole rest of the coaching staff, you know, it just seemed, you know, they're a good core group of people together. You know, they really seemed like they worked well together and stuff. And That's just that's somewhere where you want to be. When you have good coaches that are all together and they seem like they feed off of each other and work well together. As a player, that's all you want. So,
with Coach Dunn being the offensive coordinator, what did he tell you about the offense and his desired plan offensively that really aligned to what you do well at the quarterback position?
He likes to throw the ball. It seems like they got some good schemes and whatnot that'll fit me well. Obviously David was a great quarterback and an amazing athlete, and I won't say I'm as fast as he was, but I can definitely throw, and I think that there's a lot of room for air game in this offense. So.
Now, you mentioned earlier you did take an official visit to UConn. You mentioned that really confirmed that UConn was a place for you. What was it about that visit? Was it the facilities? Was it the campus itself? Was it a chance to really sit down and see the coaching staff as well as the other players on the team while you were there? What made you really think that UConn was the place?
Yeah, the facilities and everything are amazing. All the stuff that they have is awesome. But at the end of the day, it's the community and really the coaches and the players. These guys are very nice. They're great people. They're genuine. A lot of places trying to kind of put on a show and put on a face for you. These guys weren't like that. They're very open, genuine people. They tell you the truth. No matter what, very straightforward, which is, and that's what you want. You want to go into a place and, you want to know the truth. You want to know, everything about the place. And then just the community, the university itself and the area. All the people were very welcoming and nice, and it's a beautiful area. So, really just everything you look for.
Now, you began your career at West Florida, first ever signee in the history of that program. So you've really been through a building process before, taking that program to really the national championship game at the Division II level. UConn obviously coming off a 1-11 season. Do you see some similarities there that you can take some of the lessons you learned going through that building process that you can come in and really apply to this program here at UConn?
Yeah, definitely. It was a unique opportunity being able to start up a program at West Florida. Definitely felt like I learned a lot. A lot of what makes a team and what makes a team run. Those same kind of things. Hopefully I'll be able to contribute at UConn. I think having a great culture is something that makes a team flow. Teams can have all the talent in the world, but if the culture isn't there and if the unity within the team isn't there, then a lot of the times they won't be too successful. So I'm hoping to bring a little bit of leadership and some unity to the team.
Now, you're coming off a season where you were injured a season ago, but you very productive from the quarterback position in 2017. From my perspective, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but you probably could have continued and ultimately been the guy down in Pensacola moving forward throughout the rest of your career there. Do you see this move up to the FBS level as a chance to really challenge yourself at this level of play at college football to really, like I said, challenge yourself and see how good of a player you really are?
Yeah, that's really what it is. West Florida was awesome. It was an amazing place. That was really the core reason for me to try and move up. I wanted to challenge myself and give myself a good shot to be able to fulfill my dream and play professional football. So, I was very thankful to get the opportunity from UConn to really, give myself a shot at this. And, it's fun. You want to always challenge yourself. You never want to get comfortable. Kind of a thing I've always lived by is, comfortable being uncomfortable, so, just trying to take the next step and see where I can take this.
I've heard that line from head coach Randy Edsall once or twice, so it seems like you are a perfect fit for the type of player that he's really looking for. Speaking about coming up to this level, what's your mindset going to be? You're coming in the summer. What's the mindset you're going to take into what's going to be a quarterback competition as you get up here?
Yeah, well, everything's going to be a competition no matter no matter where you are. I mean, that's how you want it. I'm hoping to just go in there and I'm gonna, work my butt off every single day. Try and be the best in everything that I can do. At the end of the day, if you're working hard and you're, pushing yourself and pushing others, then you're making everyone around you better. So you're just gonna, work hard, have some fun, and hopefully, just make everyone better.
Now, it certainly seems like you have the maturity level, you have some experience at the college level, you have the intangibles off the field. Watching your film, it seems you're really able to read defenses, really drop balls into space where the defense has a gap maybe. What makes you successful on the field as a quarterback?
I think it's just that. I think the knowledge of the game. I feel like I'm a very knowledgeable person. I just love the game of football. I love studying it, watching it, whatever it is. And so, I think if you know what's going on and you have a solid understanding of your offense and the other team's defense, I mean, you're going to be successful. A lot of the times when people aren't successful, they're not preparing right, or they haven't put in the preparation for it. So, I think that's kind of what helped me out a lot, and I mean that's what I'll continue to do. I just enjoy it.
And you've been through big moments at the college level. How is that going to prepare you to take that experience that you've had in college at Division II, maybe take that experience and apply it here?
I guess, like you said, it's just experience, just being in that moment and seeing how it feels and being able to prepare for that moment and, be able to keep your mind in it and all those little things, and that really only comes through experience. So I was very fortunate to be able to experience that in Division II and play on the biggest stage of Division II, and just kind of get that experience. And, it should be a smooth transition over to the FBS level, which is, obviously the top level of college football. So, I'm just excited to do it.
And then finally, you're originally from Saskatchewan, which is a little unique for a quarterback in college football. What was your process to getting to West Florida? I think you did play some high school ball in the state of Florida. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so I actually moved when I was young. So I was born up in Regina, Saskatchewan. I moved when I was about 10, so I was still fairly young. We moved to Orlando with my parents, my grandfather and my sister. So, I kind of grew up in Orlando, played high school ball, actually in Oviedo, which is, just outside of Orlando. And then got recruited out of high school to Pensacola. So I've been in Florida for a good bit of time. All
right, well, that's Mike Beaudry. Beaudry, apologies. Mike Beaudry, and again, congratulations on your commitment. And certainly we look forward to seeing you on the practice field this coming summer.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're listening to UConn Sports Nation, presented by ThisIsUConnCountry.com, where you'll find the latest news, game previews, and recruiting when it comes to UConn football. The final guest on the signing day recap special is Hartford Courant beat writer Alex Putterman, who joins us on the UConn Sports Nation hotline. Alex, you had a chance to take in Randy Edsall's press conference this afternoon in Stores. What was his overall message about this class as a whole?
Well, Matt, his overall message was speed and athleticism. That's what he said was most important to him in this recruiting process, and he said that that's what he kind of emphasized in trying to find recruits. He specifically spoke about the receiver, led by graduate transfer Edsall Brown, who he said is particularly speedy, but also the freshmen who are coming in. So that was really a point of emphasis. And then he talked about the fact that there are 4 graduate transfers and also 1 JUCO transfer in this class, and how he values the experience and the maturity that some of those guys have that freshmen don't. And I don't think it's his ideal way of building a program to rely on graduate transfer, but with where the Huskies are now, he felt like that was the kind of logical way to go.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of graduate transfers with this program. It seems like he's looking to fill in that void that's really opened based on some of the transfers that left of the program. There's not a lot of upperclassmen on this class any longer, or in this program any longer. Specifically about the graduate transfers, one of those guys, Edsall Brown, receiver from Seton Hill University, really on film really showcases some speed, but also leadership. And I think that's exactly what head coach Randy Edsall is looking for, is that leadership factor. Did he talk about that at all today when talking specifically about those grad transfers?
Absolutely. He said that talked about that all last season. The program doesn't have a lot of leadership right now. And he thinks that some of these guys could provide that. Some of them were captains of their previous teams. Like I know Michael Hinton from Columbia was a captain at Columbia. And he is hoping that they can provide a little leadership. He said that specifically, and he said that was actually something that they looked into before signing these guys, was whether they were the type of players who could provide a little leadership.
Now, looking at the class, it's about a 50-50 split, 20 guys total, 10 offense, 10 defense. Offensively, 2 QBs, a running back, 4 receivers, a tight end, and 2 offensive linemen. You talked a little about the speed that they focused on in some of the signings, but as a whole, offensively, just your perspective on what they brought in, specifically targeting 4 receivers, 2 quarterbacks, filling some voids that departed the program from a year ago.
Yeah, I think if you look at who they lost this offseason, and then that lines up very cleanly with who they brought in. They lost their top 4 pass catchers from last year, 2 receivers and 2 tight ends. So they brought in 4 receivers and a tight end. They lost, obviously, their starting quarterback, so they brought in a couple quarterbacks, including a graduate transfer who could be right there in the mix next fall. So I think that is kind of the answer of why they targeted these positions. You know, they are in pretty good shape on the offensive line, both in terms of returning 4 starters and also a lot of their depth there. So they didn't need to bring in a ton of offensive linemen. They wound up with 2, and I think they were satisfied with that. And I'll add that Randy said today they're not necessarily done. They could still pursue grad transfers if they pop into the portal there that the coaches use. And specifically a tight end or a defensive lineman could be positions that they're still looking to go after.
You just brought up the portal. Edsall has been very vocal about what the portal is doing to college football in general. What's your take on how it's impacted college football and college football recruiting as well?
Well, my personal opinion is that I think players should have as much freedom as they can in the process. You know, coaches can dart around all they want. We saw that with Manny Diaz, for example, this offseason. And so I generally support players being able to go where they want, when they want, to do what is best for them, and hopefully they have get good advice along the way. I can't really speak to the logistics of how that should work and if this system is right. And I understand why Randy and other coaches are kind of frustrated with it and what they see as kind of a free agent system. But I generally feel like if a kid wants to go to a new school, a kid should get to go to a new school.
And speaking of new schools, one of those guys you mentioned earlier is on the defensive line, which was a major focus for the staff on the recruiting trail defensively. 5 defensive linemen, 3 defensive backs, which is really a switch from what we saw a season ago. They did bring in 4 defensive linemen last year, but I think they had as much as 7 defensive backs a year ago. Is that indicative, do you think, of what type of scheme UConn's going to be running under their new defensive coordinator, Lou Spanos, or do you think it was a number issue, or what do you see there?
I think it was chiefly a numbers issue. Like you said, they brought in a ton of defensive backs last cycle. I don't know if you heard, but Randy did mention today a little bit of a hint about the scheme that they might run. He said they would have a defensive tackle, 2 defensive tackles, a defensive end, and a rover. So it sounds like kind of an end outside linebacker hybrid type position. And obviously a lot can change, and we haven't gotten a chance to talk to Lou Spanos yet. But so it sounds like if anything, they would need guys who can kind of be both an end or a linebacker to fill that role. I think that the emphasis on defensive line was really just, if you look at their roster, there just aren't a lot of defensive linemen there outside of the 4 guys they brought in last year, especially with Kevin Murphy leaving and then Darian Beavers transferring.
Yeah, and you talked a little about Lou Spanos, which I think we're going to hear from him next week as spring practice kicks off. Looking towards spring practice, obviously that kicks off early next week already. We're talking about spring practice is still the winter. But What are you going to be focused on as the Huskies kick off the spring?
I would like to say that I'm going to be focused on like the battle for backup free safety or something really nerdy like that. But honestly, I'll be watching the quarterbacks. I want to see what Marvin Washington and Stephen Krajewski can do. They know they've got a couple of newcomers who are going to come in and compete with them, in particular Mike Beaudry, the graduate transfer. So I'll be watching very carefully. Last year it felt like the offense, you kind of knew what was going on that side of the field, so you had to spend a lot of time watching defense. This year, I think we're all going to have to focus on that quarterback position. It's not going to be necessarily as stable as it was last year.
Yeah, I think that goes for some other positions on the offensive side of the football as well. And I think competition is going to be the key word throughout not just the spring, I think even through the summer as some of these other guys get there. Because in the spring it's just going to be, like you said, Marvin Washington and Stephen Krajewski, and then that competition is really going to pick up in the summer as some of these guys get in. Specifically, wide receiver, running back, I think there's a lot of open spots heading into what the first game of the year is in August against Wagner. The schedule came out earlier today. Just from a standpoint of competition, do you think that's something that Edsall really tried to do by bringing not just the leadership side of some of these grad transfers, but a competition standpoint as well to really challenge some of the youth that's on this roster?
Yeah, I do think that's part of it. And as we saw last year, the young guys aren't all ready to play. We heard that from the coaches, and we saw it on the field. So I think they looked at what happened last year and said, well, we can't just run all this back all over again, because that didn't go that well last year. And yes, everyone will be a year older, but some things have to change. We got to get some new blood in there who can play right away. And so I do think it might benefit some of the young guys to have another experienced player to compete against, and it might benefit the team that some of those experienced guys maybe step in for some of the young guys who deserve a little bit more time to develop.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, and I think that's something that we'll see as we get spring practice underway next week. And again, Alex, I appreciate your time. Thanks for talking a little bit about UConn football here, and we'll be back at the practice field before you know it in a week from now.
Yeah, see you next week, man.